All right, everyone, welcome back. And today we're very luckily joined by a man I grew up watching, the 154 game NRL veteran, the man who is not only the head honcho of No Limit Boxing, but in my opinion, the head honcho of Australian boxing. None other than Big Georgie Rose. George, how are you, man?
Well, very kind words there. I really appreciate it. Thanks,
No,
mate. I'm
no,
good.
of course, man. I grew up a big NRL fan, so I grew up watching you on the telly. So, look, man. Aside from that, I want to get straight into what you're doing nowadays, which I think has been very impressive. The growth of No Limit in Australia over the last few years has really been extraordinary, and what you've done in the boxing realm has really taken the sport to new heights, in my opinion, in this country. And you guys have very clearly become the elite promoter in Australia. In your opinion, what would you attribute a lot of that recent success you guys have had to? This Gold Coast show was announced today that it was sold out. So, you guys are definitely killing it. So, what would you attribute that to, you reckon?
Um, Look, I'd attribute it to the last 10 years of hard work.
Yeah.
The success that we're seeing now is something that's come since it is actually our 10th anniversary in September of our first show. So we've been hard at it for a long time. We've stayed pretty true to our values and what we want to achieve in the sport.
Mm.
And I think that's really helped too.
Yeah.
And I guess the fact that we're open to criticism, we're open to learning and always trying to get better and do better. So
Yeah,
I guess
definitely.
that's probably a big reason. And I mean, it helps that our fighters have been phenomenal too. Like there's
Yeah,
so much talent, and we're blessed to have a lot of that talent on our roster.
Yeah,
definitely.
definitely. So, George, we often hear people really go on that one of the problems in boxing is, getting the high profile fights that fans want to see. It can sometimes, to use the expression we've heard, it can sometimes be like pulling teeth. What's the thing today that you love most about, boxing, and what's something that you dislike most about boxing today that you'd like to see changed?
Look, I think that's a really good point. I think on the global scale, there's so many massive fights that you'd just love to see. You'd love to see them happen, and for whatever reason, they take a long time to be matched and to happen. And I think and it does happen a lot here too. There's been some great fights that we could have had here in Australia that never really eventuated, and it was really disappointing. But I think one thing that really helped the domestic scene was COVID.
Mm.
And not being able to bring in international opponents, and not being able to travel internationally. It meant that if you wanted to fight, you had to take a fight here, and the only fights that were here were against other well matched people. So we were able to match some really good fights during that period, and I think it also set a standard for what the Australian public wants to see from our Australian fighters. We want to see them having a crack and being in them tough fights.
Yeah, definitely. Well, look, George, I know, let's sort of move to this fight card coming up on the Gold Coast on June 18th. I saw that interview this afternoon with Tim saying that there's a dog in me and it's about to come out, and that's very exciting to hear because Carlos, he's a Mexican warrior, and what those fighters and those styles correlate in the ring. So it's a very exciting fight for the fans. And how do you see this fight playing out in your mind?
Look, I've got every faith in Tim Tszyu. I believe that Tim Tszyu is the best fighter in the super welterweight division in the world. I have 100% faith in that, and so I do believe that he'll win. I believe that he'll beat Charlo. I believe that he'll beat Ocampo on June 18th. But it's you can't help but think as well. It's a massive risk. It's a massive risk. It's a scary fight, and there's no such thing as an easy fight left for Tim Tszyu.
Yeah.
And we love to see that he challenges himself. We love to see him be so competitive, but he keeps getting more and more obstacles thrown at him, and he happily takes on the challenge.
Yep.
He happily steps up to it. And speaking to him today, again, he's just in such a great headspace. His mindset is it's phenomenal. His discipline, his work ethic, everything, he's just focused. And I'd hate to be a super welterweight in the world right now and have to compete against a guy like him.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely. So, George, I wanted to ask you, what do you think is going to be the next sort of big evolution in boxing that's going to occur? You know, whether it's a new method of promoting fights, you know, a change in the presentation of fights on the night. But, you know, from your perspective, what's that next step in boxing's evolution, you know, heading from now into the future?
Look, I think if I did know the answer to that, I wouldn't tell you. I'd keep it up my sleeve.
Yeah, fair enough.
but you know, for us, we've been lucky enough to be able to travel to a few international fights in the last 12 months, and you know, so we've been to Matchroom, we've been to Boxer, we've been to PBC, we've been to Top Ring, and to be able to see what they do for their event, and you know, what they try, everything that they're doing differently. I think the biggest change, I suppose, in the sport has been the YouTube fighters and the crossover fighters, and you know, it's sort of at first they were coming through together, but now it's sort of like it's got its own market over here, and then there's still, you know, boxing still exists over, you know, in this space, but I think, and you know, people have their opinions on that as well, but for me, the more people that get interested in the sport, they keep watching the sport, I've got no problems with it. You know, if it means that some of our guys who are, you know, training their ass off week in, week out to build a fan base, if they now get access to another 100,000 people because of a YouTube guy stepping into the ring, then that's awesome for us. That's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Well, look, I want to touch just quickly on this Charlo fight that, you know, could become a possibility, pending if, you know, Tim gets through Ocampo, which I do think we will. Obviously, it's been made clear that the September deadline is now in place and that he has to defend the titles before then. Do you think that we will actually see this Tszyu versus Jermell Charlo fight before that deadline? Do you think that fight is actually going to happen before September, or what are your thoughts on that?
Look, it's a great question, and you know, I had a really strong answer about this 12 months ago because I thought it was definitely going to happen when it was first meant to happen. But you know, one thing that we have learned is that being in the position that we are, some things are out of our control. So we're very lucky that the WBO has been so strong in their stance on what's going to happen. They're understanding, and we're understanding as well. You know, a hand injury. Take time to heal. We want Charlo to be at his absolute best. No excuses. He's the undisputed champ for a reason. He is a fantastic fighter. There's no doubting that. He had been the best in the division for quite some time. And you know, the beauty of this delay, I think, has meant that Tim's had the chance to grow over another 12 months. And we saw from the Harrison fight, you know, the standard that he was at in the Harrison fight, and then now coming into another very highly touted international opponent that's going to prepare him for Charlo at the back end of the year. And you know, I do come from a footy background, but in terms of being match fit, you can't beat match fitness in your sport. And Tim's an active guy, so you know, he's going to be well and truly ready for it. I do believe that it will happen around that time. You know, pending nothing else going wrong between now and then, I think that it's got to happen. It's got to happen. And you know, Charlo himself, it's been 18 months since he had his big payday, and he'll be keen for another one.
Keen for some money, definitely.
Yeah.
We all got bills to pay.
That's it.
Definitely, man.
But George, I wanted to ask, you know, we're starting to see, you know, more and more crossover, both, you know, within the sport of boxing and, you know, boxers venturing into other sports coming in. I wanted to know, you know, do you have any interest in either co-promoting cards with other organizations, or, you know, maybe even, you know, starting to dip your toe in other combat sports?
Well, we you know, we have been dipping it a bit in the international promotions. You know, we obviously want to slowly move into that international market, and so to get the opportunity to do co-promos there, that's our way of getting our experience and hopefully eventually being able to walk on our own in that international space, which I think will be really exciting for all Australian combat sports. But look, I'm not against it. I'm all about growth. I'm all about expanding opportunities and building great platforms. And I think what we've been able to show, what we can do with boxing here in Australia, is we've been able to build a fantastic platform. We've got fighters coming through and having a really, really solid pathway towards their goal. And being able to look after our fighters the right way on that journey too. So I love every other combat sport as well. I watch all combat sports, so I do have a very strong interest everywhere. But at the moment, I'm focused on being the best at what we're doing in this space.
Yeah.
Once we're really well established and really focused on that, I'm not against it. And I mean, even now, I'm not against having those conversations because I know the amount of talent that we've got in the boxing pool here in Australia that hasn't been able to showcase itself. Now we are being able to do that. And I know that there's a hell of a lot of other combat sports professionals in the country who got a hell of a lot of talent that aren't getting the opportunity that they probably deserve. And if we can also help that out some way in the future, it's something that I'll dip my toes, I'll dip my ankle and my knee and the rest of it. I'll keep dipping.
First.
Love it.
First, why not?
Love it. Well, look, Georgie, man, you had a very successful NRL career, and like I mentioned, 154 games in NRL, and not to include your representative footy as well. During your football career, did you ever think that this would be an eventuality and you'd end up being a boxing promoter? And sort of, how did it all start for you? How did you end up becoming the head honcho at No Limit?
Yeah, look, I did not see this as the pathway at all. And to an extent, I'm a little bit filthy on it because I always wanted to fight while I was playing. I would have loved to have the fight myself, and had this platform existed the way that it does now, I would have loved to get involved in it because, I always trained for it. I loved my boxing training. I loved my even the jiu-jitsu that we did. I used to love awesome. the jiu-jitsu too. It was and even still now, I still do them for fun because it's just there's so much that you get out of it. But yeah, I guess it was just the fact that we'd started working on it while I was still playing, and at the time my brother was he was doing the role that we've now got roughly 30 odd people working on for each of our events. So he was doing all of that on his own in the first few events, and we'd come in and. I thought we were helping at the time. In hindsight, we're probably just adding, adding to the stress. And but we've been, as I said, we've been able to learn and grow from everything that we've done, and we've been passionate about boxing since we were kids. Even we always laugh about. We used to watch the old Lionel Rose movie, Rose Against the Odds. When we were only pups then, but we used to watch it, twice a week when we were kids because we loved the story of Lionel Rose and. Winning a world title against Fighting Arata, and followed we even followed Kostya heavily through this, and now to be promoting his son, and awesome. Still when you get to meet Kostya every now and then, it's sort of like a little bit of a starstruck moment. But love what we're doing, and there's no way that I'd change what we're doing at all.
Yeah, for sure. So, George, look, last couple of questions from us, man. Last one from me anyway, is that, you kind of touched on it earlier, which is, we've seen this rise of influencer boxing. And, in the beginning, they were kind of, crossing like that. Now we kind of have influencer boxing here, purist boxing, you could say here. So my question, I guess, is, do you think that this rise of influencer boxing is going to force that, pure boxing market to, up their game? Because, I always think that competition, it always breeds the best product.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, and I feel the exact same way about it. I think that's what it is going to do. You look now to be the highest paid fighter in the sport, you have to be the most watched fighter in the sport, don't you? You have to be the most supported fighter in the sport. So it makes sense that a guy like Jake Paul coming across with 20 million or 30 million YouTube subscribers, whatever he has, he's already got that fan base. So he comes across with all of these eyeballs following him, and rightfully so gets paid what he deserves. But that's how it is in the boxing game as well. Is the man or the man or woman who is watched the most gets paid the most. So it's a good opportunity to look at, to work back from where the YouTubers and the influencers are at. Is how are they building their crowd? How are they building their market? How are they building their support base? You're a fantastic boxer. Now let's work on how they got to where they are. Yeah. You don't have to be as crazy as some of them influencers, but you really do have to look at how you market yourself and grow your own brand, because you are your own brand. You're your own business. And, to be the best at the top and get paid the most is that's the way that you've got to look at it.
Definitely. Well, look, man, last one from me, last one from us is, look, Australian boxing has really come into its peak, I think, at the moment. Obviously with Jason Maloney securing the WBO bantamweight title a few weeks back, you got Jai Patai, the IBF cruiserweight champion. You got George Kambosos, who's back in the mix in an IBF title eliminator in a month's time. And to top it all off, you got Tim Tszyu staring down the barrel at an undisputed shot. It's a very exciting time for Australian boxing, and I think it's at its peak. We've had the heydays, in the past, and but I think now it is where it's at. So how exciting is it for you to be a promoter of not only a boxing promotion, but the biggest boxing promotion in Australia during these times?
Oh, look, it's really exciting for me too, and I'm grateful to be in the position that we are in. Like I said before, we've worked really hard to get here, and we've had our own journey to get to this point. But the fact that we've got so many guys performing at their absolute peak right now is a blessing for us, because it means that we can give opportunities to these guys, or we can use them as the opportunities for the next guys to come through as well, because so many people over the past have been good enough to win world titles, but never got them opportunities. And to know that these guys, I watched Jason Maloney the other week, and it was just really, really awesome. Proud to see him, to see him achieve what he did, because they're some of the best blokes in combat sports in Australia. And, they absolutely deserve that. And, I was stoked for him. And then, now to know that Tim is where he's at, about to head into Charlo's backyard and take all of them belts off him. That's just going to top my year off, and I think it'll top the year off for Australian boxing, Australian combat sports, and we well and truly thoroughly deserve it, because so often we do get overlooked. We're very underrated on the global scene, because people think that because we're down here, we're not taking on the same tough fights that a US guy or a UK guy is. But we're good enough. The difference is that we don't have the same depth in sparring here. And a lot of our guys are now traveling overseas for that sparring, and they're getting what they need in their training camps, and then taking it into the ring and proudly representing Australia on the world stage.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Well, look, George, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, man. We really appreciate it. We're wishing you all the best, for the future. I know that, the future for you is only up from here, and hopefully you can crack a few beers on that 10-year anniversary. And yeah, man, we'd love to talk to you again in future, maybe after this huge boxing event.
Yeah, of course. Happy to chat to you anytime, and look forward to coming up into your backyard soon.
Yeah, George. Definitely. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you very much, man.